Yo guys, I have returned with a review of You Only Live Twice. So let's talk about it. Before we begin, be sure to comment down below what you think about this movie. And I would like to ask you to like this video and subscribe to my channel. We're going towards the 200 subscribers and I would really appreciate it if you would help me to get there. And with all that said, let's start talking about the bad. In my opinion, this is the weakest Bond movie of the 60s. But it doesn't mean I dislike this movie. I still really enjoy it. However, there are some very big flaws. For one, I think the Bond girls in this movie are the weakest of the 60s. And now I might sound racist, but it's not because of the actresses, but it's the way they were written. At least Aki did some noteworthy stuff. She saves Bond actually quite a few times in this movie. But something that never sat quite well with me is that right before the third act, Aki is killed off and then just replaced with Kissy, who actually looks very similar to Aki. I don't think it would have made any difference if they kept Aki throughout the entire movie. And then she would have been, I think that she would be better remembered if she was in the entire movie. Another thing is Sean Connery. And before you hit the dislike button and unsubscribe, hear me out. I love Sean Connery. He's my favorite James Bond actor and one of my favorite actors of all time. But in this movie, he is sick of the role, and it is very noticeable. He has some fun moments in this movie, but for a large portion, he just looks bored. And he isn't in quite as good a shape as he was in Dr. No. At least he's in much better shape than he was in Diamonds Are Forever. So Sean Connery just unfortunately looks pretty bored throughout this movie. This is actually not a big complaint for me, but this always cracks me up when watching this movie. When Bond is in Alsato Industries, he notices a safe and he just happens to have a safe cracker in his pocket. Very conveniently. And this is probably the most talked about thing about You Only Live Twice. And it is the scene where James Bond turns Japanese. Not only is it racially insensitive, the way it plays out in the movie also has no significance on the plot, which was only kept in because of the book. And man oh man, does Sean Connery look ridiculous in his Japanese disguise. Talk about not aging well, but to me it's baffling that this was ever put into a movie. But with these things aside, we can luckily go to the positives. And the best thing I can say for this movie is that it is a very confidently made movie. Because the budget was even bigger than Thunderball. Just to give you an idea on how big the budget was, the volcano set was just as expensive as the entire production of Dr. No costed in total. And this is only 4 movies later. That's just how massive the budget was. And in this movie, they fully embrace the over the top side of James Bond and they pull it off in the right way. It doesn't go into ridiculous territory like in Moonraker. This is just the perfect amount of over the top in a fun and enjoyable way. The gadgets get more ridiculous in this movie. Well, again, they are not as ridiculous and stupid as in the Roger Moore movies. Here they are very fun. You have cigarette rocket launchers. And I think the coolest gadget of this movie, or if you can call it a gadget, the Little Nelly. The tiny helicopter that Bond uses to infiltrate the island. Man, that was such an awesome scene. It fires rockets, torpedoes, heat-seeking missiles, mines. That was such a great moment. And the plot, again, like Thunderball, it is very classic Bond. Here it's setting 2 nations up against each other by stealing space shuttles from the Russians and the Americans, so they come to blame each other. And the plot line of setting 2 nations up against each other will be used 2 more times in the Bond franchise. And I think that Tiger Tanaka and his crew of ninjas makes for a very fun ally for Bond. And the villains are very good in this movie too. Here we finally get to see Blofeld's face, played brilliantly creepy by Donald Pleasence. His face is all messed up and he is probably just the most iconic Bond villain of all time. He's parodied so many times, like in the Austin Power movies. And I already talked about the volcano set, but that is easily my favorite James Bond set out of the entire franchise. It is just so cool. It has a working monorail, it launches rockets, it has a badass map of the entire world, and it fits so well in the over-the-top nature of this movie. And overall, I think this is just a very fun and over-the-top movie that isn't necessarily as good as the previous 4, but it is still such a fun watch. I'm gonna give this movie about a 7.5 overall and an 8 on the entertainment scale. And I think this is a solid addition to the Bond franchise. Now comment down below what you think about this movie. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you think it's okay? Comment down below. And please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. And until next time, I will return.